Good afternoon, and welcome to the Grapevine, brought to you by the Power Broker Media Group, celebrating 20 years of bringing important information, announcements, leadership, guidance, and support to the Tampa Bay area. My name is Carl Lavender, and I'm your host for the Grapevine, and I am excited today to have as my special guest, my first guest on the Grapevine, the one, the only Ernest Coney Jr., who, by virtue of his role in life, has begun or has implemented one of the most important programs in Tampa Bay, if not the nation. So, Ernest, again, good afternoon and welcome to you. I'm glad you're here.
Good afternoon, Carl. I'm truly excited to be here with you. And, sitting in your presence is also such a opportunity for me as well.
Thank you, man. Say more. Let's start with Ernest Coney Jr. Talk about your background, your education. Let our readers and viewers hear a little bit more about you, since you're a busy person. You may not have this chance all the time. You to kind of share. So tell me more about yourself.
Yeah, so, first and foremost, I'm a true Tampanian, born and raised
Yes.
here in Tampa,
I
Florida.
love that Tampanian, yes.
Florida boys. So, had the opportunity to, see a lot of things in high school, and not knowing that one day the things that I was seeing would be part of my career path as well later on, and how I help educate young folks and have youth leadership programs. But one of the things that's really unique is that, of course, everyone knows my parents, both of my parents. Ernest Coney Sr. helped to build the first inner city YMCA here in Tampa. And my mother, of course, was the founder and first CEO of the CDC of Tampa. So even when I was in middle school and high school, I was getting like this first-class education, how you do community and economic development, not knowing one day that I would need every tool and all that knowledge to continue the legacy that they helped to start. And that legacy goes back to my grandparents, right? So my grandparents were also cut from the same cloth. A lot of our family members are. I was fortunate enough to graduate from Thomas Jefferson High School and then go on to Dartmouth College. And my
Excellent.
career goals after that was really around healthcare and, doing medical finance, accounting, and actuarial work. And not knowing that one day that would come into play when it came to real estate, like transferable skills, right?
Absolutely.
How to
And we'll
how to
get to
put the
that in
deals
the
together,
interview. Yes.
right?
Wow. Everything. You see how everything works out? These are things I call divine order.
Yes, yes.
Even in childhood, your name has been called and spoken to play a role so that kingdom building can continue, however anybody wants to interpret that. But these things you're called, like Samuel,
Yes,
very early on in life. Here
yes.
I am, Lord, send me. So, fantastic journey. But let's get to the business of the organization.
Yeah,
So the CDC, the Community Development Corporation, and for the benefit of the audience, CDC, as I reference it throughout this interview, stands for Community Development Corporation. The CDC that you head up is the largest CDC in the largest CRA in the state of Florida.
yes.
The West Tampa CRA is the second largest. So Hillsborough County is home to two of the largest CRA districts in the state of Florida. So how do you manage the largest CDC inside the largest CRA
Yes.
in Hillsborough County and now in the state? How do you manage that?
Yeah, so the CRAs were great economic engines, and one of the things that I try to educate our community on and stakeholders on is when you look at most CRAs, they help to develop downtowns and areas like Waterside, and people who have truly neighborhood-based CRAs, which East Tampa and West Tampa are, that economic engine hasn't multiplied quite as much, right? So it's like, how do we go about doing the business to create these economic engines? And both of those markets are totally different. East Tampa is highly residential, but West Tampa had like these unique spaces that, between Hillsborough County, the school district, and Tampa Housing Authority, they own like 30 acres of contiguous neighborhood blocks, right, to do really transformative work. So oftentimes what we talk about, especially in East Tampa, is we have to be very intentional with every penny that we have and every opportunity so we can create economic engines, be it employment centers, be it housing, whatever it kind of takes to really help our neighborhoods elevate. But those are totally different type neighborhoods, and we're still trying to do some things. Like you guys over in St. Pete, you guys got it going on. Like your CRAs allow folks to kind of do some things that aren't just brick and mortar. We're fighting that battle over here. Like a lot of it just wants to be brick and mortar. And what I tell people is when you build a table that doesn't focus on human capital, you're building the table for somebody else oftentimes.
Yes, you are.
Right.
Absolutely.
So we want to make sure that our residents have the opportunity to enjoy some of that brick and mortar that we're building. But love what you guys are doing. But we're doing a great job over here as well. But you guys have set the template.
Ah, and thanks for the compliment. And you brought up something interesting. For the CRA of West Tampa, CRA of East Tampa, the CRA of St. Petersburg, have the three of you all ever sat down and talked about capacity building? Has there been an arrangement like that ever done, if you recall?
Yeah, I know. I know we shared some information from what you guys are doing over there in South St. Pete. Um, our attorneys kind of get involved with stuff, and their
Okay.
interpretations are a little bit different sometimes.
Sure.
Um, but we've been able to do some amazing things. We have a youth program that was funded one time out of our CRA. We do a lot of housing, a lot of rehab, again, a lot of brick and mortar stuff, but also we want to make sure that the human capital is also secured for. So we definitely need to do that. That's gonna be the next thing on the agenda is to bring
I
all
think
these
that'd be important
together.
for all of us. Yeah, I think the
Yeah,
timing is right for that with redistricting, and I'll get to that in a minute. I
yeah,
think the timing is perfect for us to have some synergistic conversation at best.
yes,
So let's go back to the point you made about growing up and
yes.
being the son of an icon. May I say that,
Yes.
generously speaking? So your childhood, you had to have role models, I'm sure. Spend a couple of minutes talking about what was it like to observe mom and dad, and mom in particular, in their growth and development, and then have you step in to be the president and CEO. Walk us through that journey that you've been on from going child to professional to now the president and CEO.
Yeah, it's always been an amazing journey. So, I remember waking up as a child and it would be, kids from all of our neighborhoods sleeping over in the house, calling my mom and dad, mom and dad. I'm like, what's going on? This is Christmas Day. It's supposed to be about us. Right. So the very first thing that I was taught was if you've been blessed, right, your calling should be to bless others, right? And not
Mm,
to hoard these opportunities. So that was the very first lesson that I learned growing up. The next lesson that I learned, both my parents walked away from corporate America, right?
sure.
And came to this industry with skill sets that were needed. And I had the opportunity to kind of follow that path. And both of them gave me different perspectives. So my father, when he was with the YMCA, when he built the YMCA, before there was any MBE ordinances or regulations, he brought an all black cast, general contractor, architects, subs, everybody together, right? So it was a template about how you can help support your community when you're in these positions before there was any regulations and all those things. And of course, with my mother, everything from community engagement. I have a picture of me in high school where I was doing drug marches in high school, help leading drug marches and taking back the community. So really getting a first class education in how you do community and economic development at a very young age and not knowing what I was seeing, but practicing it so that, now when I come and sit down, I think about all those things that we were able to accomplish as young folks and bringing those experiences to what we're doing today.
Congratulations again and again and again. When you look at and observe what is happening in CDCs across the state, specifically here now across the Bay Area, how does CDCs influence government? Because we ultimately, your resources come out of government to sustain the organization. Have you had any influence on how city government, state or county government determine policies around housing, economic development? Is your data being used to fuel government policy creation? Talk about that journey.
Yeah, so that's always a very critical component of it. So when you talk about, how wealth is created or how wealth is lost, oftentimes a policy is involved
Yes,
with that
exactly right.
journey, right?
Yes.
So, the CDCs have a really unique voice in how we represent the community to bring that along. So a lot of times people start programs and it's top down versus bottom up. So we help to bring that voice. So everything from, how we run specific programs, oftentimes I sit on AHAC, the Affordable Housing Advisory Council. I've done other work with the city of Tampa to help with this Transforming Tomorrow, which affordable housing was a critical source of and component of that, and really talk about what the real needs are, right? How do you administer down payment assistance? We've had programs where we brought DPA to the table, and then they were like, "Well, we don't want those programs because we're helping people a little bit more than what we're used to." And we had to go back and say, "Hey, this is what the regulations state can be applicable, so that we can help people in need. And it's not your money; we're bringing in additional money, right?"
Right.
Sometimes it's about the bureaucracy of the challenges and how you can use capital. We've also brought in like new market tax credits and say, hey, you can pull these resources and leverage what you had even more, because we all know that CRAs now can't, bond their money like they used to, right? So now it's about how do we attract more capital that can really expand the services and the funding that they do have available, right? So sometimes it's about innovative capital. So we've done some of the very first projects where you can do housing with new market tax credits, where you can do more small business lending with new market tax credits, and it helped to leverage the impact and the scale for the city as well. Zoning is a whole nother issue. Like we're still fighting that battle. We've been talking about affordable housing, right? So you're excited. You're a nonprofit. You get this expedited process letter, and only come to realize that you're in the front of the line, but you don't get through the line any faster.
Right.
Right? And they're like, hey guys, we need to measure the time frame from start to end. That's how you expedite, not just getting to the front of the line, because it can take you 6 months to still get through that cycle. Let's bring all the groups together. So there's been some policy about how we do production of homes, the capital of having homes in. And now I think we're really trying to focus with Congress about how do we get private sector to invest in the production of affordable housing and not the ownership of it. Because once they got that beak wet and buying mortgages, they learned that they can make money in this game. And now they're owning the brick and mortar, not just the mortgages, but the brick and mortar, and having rental units, and they own entire subdivisions. Well, we need them to invest in the production of it and not in the ownership of it.
Absolutely. Which leads to the question, the resourcing of your CDC. Primarily, as I said earlier, there's county government, there's state and federal government, but the private industry, meaning corporations, are you seeing an uptick in support of what dollars you're receiving or capital you are receiving? Is there a complicated pathway, or is there an easy pathway for a corporation like yours at this point in corporate speak?
Yeah, I think it's a mandate, and I think part of what helped me was coming from the private sector, so I can talk
Yes.
on both sides. A lot of times, even like when you do housing counseling, oftentimes nonprofits would go to banks and say, "Hey, out of your CRA, give me foundation money out of your CRA," which is the regulated component of it. So you might get a small portion, but then if you go to them and talk to them a business arrangement, right? I'm helping to create and increase your market share, right? I'm taking somebody who's not bankable, making them bankable, and you're going to get a line of credit with them. You're going to get a mortgage with them. You're going to get trade lines with them. That is worth an economic dollar, and that's not a CRA transaction. That is a business transaction, right?
Absolutely.
And what does it cost for you to acquire clients? What does it cost for you to have them increase your lines of credit? How much are you going to make on a 30-year mortgage? Right. So we start talking business analysis, and before you know it, I'm getting some of the operational money as well, and not just the CRA money. And we have to be more cognizant of that. Sometimes, we ask for money and we think that, we are a nonprofit just only doing good from a mission standpoint. We are also helping people to create market share, right? Every time we build a home, it's going to be an insurance company who's going to make money from that.
Yes.
The city and the county is going to make property taxes from that. It's like this whole, influence of people who are able to make an opportunity. And for housing, I think it's a 10x economic impact. So if you spend $300,000 on a home, it's a 10x economic impact on that home.
Yeah.
So you got to go downstream and figure out who's all making money, and let's have conversations, because we're in this together. Because if you make more money as a private sector person and you invest in me, we both do well and grow each other, help grow each other. So that's the conversations we have to have.
I love this strength to strength conversation.
Yes.
it's the season of that more and more and more. And that means that when you arrive at the table, you can speak to the table from your strengths and not necessarily, as I said, the power broker many times, from a benevolent or entitlement position, but one that is clearly based on transaction, not
Right.
as much on transformation of people. It is the transaction conversation that's critical here. So going forward, you've had enormous successes. I understand you have a multi-million-dollar portfolio hovering under a little under $10 million all over the counties, multiple counties, considerable influence in state and federal government. So where does Ernest go next? I
Yeah.
mean, what happens for the next go around in the growth spurt? Are you tied to some things that are significant here?
Yeah, I think the great opportunity is for nonprofits like the CDC of Tampa and others to really think about how we deliver our services and how we can scale, right?
Yes. Yes.
So we've been a affordable housing developer. We're thinking about, can we become a GC company as well? As you know, we
Okay.
have a 3D printer. So
Are
we're
you saying it here for the first time? Are we here for on the grapevine? Is it?
breaking news, breaking news. I'm giving you the insight. I'm giving you the
That's why I
insight.
call it the grapevine. I love it. Hey, listen, folks, we're hearing it for the first time about these next steps. Go ahead, keep going, please.
Yeah, so a GC company, right? And we have the 3D printer as well. So we can take that and build 3D printed homes for you. Just hire us and sit back and watch it get built. We also are thinking about, like, on the workforce side. We have a small vocational school. Right now we've been running primarily from federal grants and state grants, but we're thinking about, can we move into the space of doing student loans? Can we move into the space of doing corporate trainings and getting more corporate America to hire us to do that type of training? When you look at, workforce staffing companies are really critical. So we do all this training of folks, but we're not able to monetize once we send them out to get the job. We just hand people a ready-made person with certifications and the whole nine. Well, maybe it's a recruitment company or a staffing company, right? So those are the kind of evaluations that we're going through now. And I think it's always been there for us to think about, because we all know that after the Great Recession, if you weren't shaken up by that,
Yes.
I don't know if anything gets your attention. That got my
And
attention.
there's more coming.
And there's more coming, right? So we have to be just as astute as anyone else. And we talk about ourselves as nonprofits and in this industry. We also need to make sure we're talking about ourselves as small businesses.
Yes.
With staff, with budgets, right? And a scalability of our business model.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Big question and lots of anxiety. Here's the word: redistricting.
Yes.
It's hard for me to say it. What does, or have you taken a position? And if you're not free to disclose, I fully understand. But for our grapevine listeners that are curious about your significant role in the Castor era,
Yes.
are you in any way troubled? Do you have a plan of action going into this remodel or re-engineered district that has been a benefit to you for so many years?
Yeah, this is a challenge for us. This is a unique moment in time. This is our generation finding itself in the things that our grandparents once stood and had to face.
Power.
Had to have the resolve to find an answer and to stand flat-footed and say, not on my watch. This is our generation's time to have these conversations. For me, it's a two-part thing. One is we have to create more economic engines so we have a voice, right? So our dollars get diluted, right? Our dollars don't circulate one time in the Black community. So how can you even sit at a table and say, I have demands, when people can't even take you seriously, that you don't have economic strength, right?
Yes.
So one of the first things that we have to do is figure out ways how we all can connect and work together from an economic standpoint so that we can position ourselves to do that. The second part of that is really educating ourselves on understanding that we need to vote the best person and hold that person accountable, because I don't care what, RD, independent, what you have behind your name or in front of your name. It's, can you align yourself with things that are practical and things that make sense and things that are, morally sometimes even the correct thing to do, right? And how do we hold each other accountable? because at this point, I know that, Congresswoman Kathy Castor, she's always had crossover, so she may be in a good place. We got to make sure we educate people on how to vote and continue to vote. But she may be one of the stronger candidates who has that crossover appeal, if you will. It's the folks at our state level that
Yes.
are really going to have some challenges in having a diaspora of thought. It's going to be the same thoughts coming out of the same, victory marches. So that's the challenge, is how do we have thoughts that can be recognized and implemented, and not just having the same bubble, if you will, that people are running with, that ends up having economic and those type of policy decisions that you were talking about that may have um, direct impacts, good or bad, in our
Yes.
neighborhoods.
Yeah, but I would hope that with this redistricting, that your competencies here in housing and eco-dev, small business and mid-size, can be spread across multiple communities across the district.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody looks at affordable housing or looks to affordable housing, and you're an expert. Everybody looks at how we can leverage small business loans to grow our portfolios. So that's not something that is unique to a particular party.
right.
Everyone wants to grow and prosper. So I would hope that in this next journey that the CDC under Coney can in fact advise whoever is campaigning on the betterment of this kind of thing, that it isn't necessarily race aligned or culture aligned.
Right.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. This is the season of transaction.
Yes.
Everyone must transact to survive.
Yeah, exactly.
And you fully understand that. Would you agree?
Exactly. And just real, like a practical example of that, right? So tax credits, right? We know
Yes.
that there's a certain party that really likes tax credits, and there's a certain economic status that likes tax credits. So when I talk about how do you get private sector to invest in the production of housing and not the ownership of it, tax credits is a mechanism to do that, right? So we're sitting down at the table, we're using the same vernacular, we're talking about the same things, but the goals can be reached, because if we don't all agree on the how, like I've traveled a lot, I've gone to Seattle, I've gone to San Francisco, and I was like, how do these cities get to that point? Fast forward 20 years later, as we drive through St. Pete and Tampa, we can quickly see how those cities got there. So we have to be very diligent and astute as far as how we make opportunities happen for everyone. And I think we all can agree certain things are important, but how you get there and the messaging of that is also important for people to hear and understand, to be able to receive it.
Would you say then that we are now entering the era of the end of urban blight as a case for support, that in fact new mayorships and county commissions and other places will work with your organization and others like yours to just get rid of the urban blight communities and start doing a whole lot more redevelopment? To that end, your CDC will play a critical role. Would you agree that this is the season for the end of urban blight?
That is definitely the season. And if you've ever gone to my lunches or galas, that's one of my
Yes.
visions. I was like, before I lay my head down,
Yes, I've heard
I
you.
would, I would like to be able to drive from neighborhood to neighborhood and not have that transition.
Yes, exactly. It's the time for that.
Yeah.
Before we close, any parting words, if you will, your wisdom, my friend,
Yeah.
in terms of what's on the grapevine
Yeah.
for Ernest Coney going forward.
So amazing things are amazing opportunities. So one thing that we have to realize is that no matter what's going on in the external environment, always look for the opportunity, right? So complaining never does anything except for complain. People who can find opportunities are the people who build. So oftentimes talk about two people. You have two people with a brick. One person's going to throw it, and one person's going to find a way to build something with it. We have to figure out how to build something with it and find the opportunities. And we know that it can happen because we also serve a great God as well. So remember, like our forefathers and parents before us, they had to rely on God, but also seeing the opportunities within the movements.
Outstanding. Ladies and gentlemen of the Grapevine, you heard it on the Grapevine. Mr. Ernest Coney Jr., President and CEO of the Community Development Corporation of Tampa and Hillsborough, one of the largest, one of the most effective CDCs in our nation. and he's sitting with us today. Have a great evening. Ernest, thank you again. Say hi to mom and dad for me, would you please?
Definitely
And I'll
will.
chat with you later. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.